Hey everyone, Julian here, and today I'm going to be talking to you about how to make solid groove style minimal tech house. We're going to be talking about that style of tech house you hear from guys like Bibi, Luuk, Dijk, Cloonee, all those guys, that sort of style where, it's still tech house, it's not full minimal house, but it's a bit more simple. We're going to be breaking that down today. As usual, you can get the full project file, samples, MIDI, presets, everything like that from this video is available right at the top of the description, and if you're a patron on my Patreon, check there, because it's already available, and yeah, let's get started. So, we're at 128 BPM, a little bit faster for tech house, but it works really well, because this style, you want that more, like, upbeat, sort of intense groove, so a little bit faster tempo like this can work really well for that. The first thing here is this bass, which sounds like this. So as you can see, it's a super simple pattern. It's mostly just based on A, since that is the key we're in. So you can see we just go A, and then there's like these two extra notes here, which are just D, which is 5 notes up, C, which is 3 notes up. And if you want to look at this from a music theory perspective, the D would be the 4th of A, and then C would be the minor 3rd. But yeah, so the thing that we're kind of playing with here as well is like the stop and start sort of sound, because we have a straight and then we break it up with that D there. And then over here, it's just broken up by having some space. And then over here, of course, we have these notes bouncing. So yeah, it's like we're creating this thing that's like, super steady, just and then breaking it up here and there to get that sort of stop and start feel with the bass line. For the sound on this one, it's actually a pretty simple sound to make. So essentially what's happening here is it's just a really simple FM sine wave bass, where you can see we just have these first two oscillators here in operator. The second one is just doing a little bit of FM on the first one. And this is just creating, that bass note that just has a little bit more harmonic content on top of it. Then we have the third oscillator, and this is adding the pluck that you hear. So I'll play you the bass without this. And then with it. You notice how when we turn it on, it just has that extra, like attack on the sound? So that's what this is doing. You can see it's just a super short envelope. And yeah, so this is why FM is really great for making these kinds of basses, because you can really go in and have each oscillator kind of do one thing. Like, oscillator A is just starting, like, with that nice fat sine wave. Oscillator B is just adding a bit of texture and harmonic content to oscillator A. And then oscillator C is in there to add the punch and the attack to the bass. So I really recommend working with FM synthesis to make these kinds of basses, because you can see, like, even a simple sound like this, you can really get in and do stuff under the surface that is going to make it really unique and different. And then we just have that going through a bit of drum bus, so that's just fattening the sound up. I have an EQ here, which is just cutting out a little bit of room for the kick at 100 hertz. And then finally, I just have a compressor sidechaining this to the kick. And that's the bass. And then for the kick, we have this, which as you can hear is the standard sort of solid groove style kick, like you'd hear in a lot of these tracks. So, it's just this big, fat, boomy kick. Very 909-esque. And yeah, this one's really about, like, the type of sound. Like, you just need to make sure you get this type of a kick. So it's gonna cut through the mix like that. Which link to grab this one is right at the top of the description. But yeah, and then I tried this going to a bit of saturation. Turning that bass frequency down is a good way to keep it from getting too crunchy, because the saturator is going to fatten this up nicely, but what it can do sometimes is kind of add some crunch, especially if we turn the bass frequency up. See, it's like we're fighting against that. And then I have the kick and the bass in a group together, so this is known as bussing. As you can see, we've done this all throughout the project file with the hi-hats and the percussion. It's just a really great way to take two things that are meant to kind of fit together. In this case, the kick and the bass both make up the low end. And then when you bust them together, it kind of turns it into one thing. I try to think of it less like the kick and the bass individually, and more just like the overall low end with this type of track. So what we have here is really just a bit of saturation. Here's without it. And then with it, you can hear it makes each sound fatter, And it also glues them together because it's filling in harmonic space between each of these two sounds, and it gives it a sort of glue. And then this high pass filter here just comes on at the end, so you can see that's just for that little. You know, just like a little transitional thing. It's a simple way to do that. And then we have the hi-hats. So as you can see, the hi-hats, there's 4 main ones. Well, there are 4 hi-hats total. You can hear we have this main hi-hat, which is just 2 layers. It's this one. Kind of like more fat mid-range. And then this one, which adds the high end. And then you put those together and you get that. And then that's just going through a little bit of short reverb. Then we have like this one. Same deal as with the bass line, you know, it's that stop and start sort of feel. And then that also plays on the upbeats here. Just to make it kind of fade down in the build up there. Then we also have this hi-hat. And this one. And then yeah, so those are just in there, you know, kind of adding some extra background stuff. I definitely recommend adding some stuff like this because you don't want to have something that isn't just like gonna be, you know, this. Like just this. It's gonna get a bit boring, but then you have those little hi-hats come in every here and there. And just add those little. And yeah, and then on the group of hi-hats, so we just have a bit of reverb. You can see this is like really dry, like it's only at 7% on the dry wet knob. This just adds a little bit of space to all the hi-hats and kind of puts them in the same place, sonically speaking. Then we have a bit of saturation, which just fattens these all up and gives them all a bit more texture. And then finally, this auto filter. So what this is doing is it's just making it so this kind of filters out here. You know, as the build goes. We have drums to keep the energy going, but then it's kind of fading. Then we jump to the smaller hi-hat, just playing some notes there. And then right at the end, it filters back up again. So yeah, you can see this filter is really helping to carry the arrangement along. This is the thing, is like, you know, when you're making really repetitive tracks like this, what is going to keep it exciting is the way that the sounds are moving. So just by having like the same thing play in the break that you would have in the drop, but it's filtering down and kind of dynamically changing which sounds are playing what, you know, you can really create like a nice build just with the drums that you already have in there. And yeah, then we have the percussion. So you can hear it's mostly just this clap here. You know, nice fat tech house clap. We have like this little kind of darker percussion that just comes, you know, gives kind of a nice refresh every 2 bars. And then we have this little noise percussion as well. So that just comes at the end of every bar. It's just a little bit of white noise with an attack envelope to kind of like fade in. I've got a high pass filter on there. And then we have, yeah, it's just hitting on that same, like. This is one of those things that's really subtle, but adding it is just going to add so much more depth to, like, your overall track and make it really feel more professional. And then on the group of percussion, we just have a bit of drum bass, so here's without it. And then with it, you can hear everything's a lot fatter with it. And then we also have this low pass filter. So this is just actually the same exact automation as you heard on the hi-hats. Just to make that kind of disappear there. It's going down. And then it comes back up. And yeah, that's the percussion. Pretty simple, you know, it's all about, again, just keeping things really sparse and open, but having the right amount of layers. Then we have our vocals, which sound like this. So these kinds of vocals are really popular in this style. You know, it's just going to be something that can sit right on top of the track and give it kind of a catchy hook, you know? Something very memorable. That's still very rhythmic, of course. You can hear this feels very free and kind of like it's just sort of flowing, but it's still very rhythmic. It's very much fitting over top of the beat. You know, like if you listen to this. That boom, boom, boom. And even this one as well. So yeah, you just want some kind of a vocal sample that's simple and catchy that essentially is going to fit over your beat nicely. And then you can hear we also do like a little. It breathes for a second and then we just do a. And then there's no vocals in the drop until we get to the end of the first 8 bars. Yeah, and then with these, you know, it's really simple. It's really more about the sound that you find and that you put into your track. You can see for the processing, that's pretty straightforward too. I've just got a bit of reverb, a bit of drum bus to kind of fatten this first vocal up, and then just a high pass filter and a bit of EQing to open it up a bit. And then with the second one, it's even less processing. So the second one just has an 8th note echo, and then some drum bus to make it fatter. And yeah, then we have our effects, which I put along the bottom here. I'll play them all together. Here's what they sound like. So as you can see, it's not actually that many elements, but it sounds pretty big, and I'm going to show you how to do that. So the first thing here is the 909 snare. You can hear and see. The way this is building up is it's just kind of like, it's not even really got that much automation. There is a bit of automation, but the automation actually isn't that integral to it. It's just kind of adding more flavor. Where the tension building with this element comes in really is in the pattern, because if you listen, it's not just doing like 16th notes constantly and then like kind of building up with volume. It's just kind of slowly adding more notes to the pattern. We start with and then just kind of adding more and more stuff to it. And that's really all you need to build a lot of tension with the snares. Like, especially with this style where it's more about the space between the notes than it is filling every second up with more notes. You know, just having like a snare that's just building up really organically like this can really sound nice on your track, and it's going to make it sound really big. And so for the effects on this one, it's just a bit of drum bus here fattening it up, and then this reverb and auto filter just automate at this one part where you can see we have, yeah, just, it's kind of fading out. And then it just stops right away, so you get that. That kind of quiet moment right before it drops. So then the next thing to show you here would be the risers inside of the break. So we have 2 of them. It's this noise riser. So as you can see, that's just white noise inside of operator, and then I'm just automating this bandpass filter to go up, and then we just have a reverb and a low end cut. And yeah, so that's the first thing. And then after that we have this pitch riser. And so what's happening is it's essentially, by putting those 2 sounds together, we're covering pretty much all of the bases. So it's like you combine those 2 with just the snare, and you're going to have more than enough building and tension and sort of intensity in your build-up that's going to work really well. And it's not about getting like 10 of these and layering them together to make the biggest possible sound. It's about getting like 2, maybe 3 of them that are going to just fit together really nicely. That's going to make the biggest and best possible sound. And so for the pitch riser, the way I made this, and it's basically just this kind of weird FM sound made with 3 sine waves. And then what's happening is you can see, so I have 3 things here that are moving. There's this pitch envelope, which as you can see is going up because I have it on minus 100, so that's making it kind of build up in pitch. Then on top of that, there's the fine tune of this oscillator too. That's being automated as well, so you're changing the actual pitch of the sound one more time. And then on top of that, there is this frequency shifter, and then I have the fine tune on that being automated. So if I turn that off, and then on, you can hear the difference. That just gives it that last little pull. And yeah, so it's actually pretty simple. It's just kind of taking everything that I can find, automating the pitch within the synth, everything that I can find, and then just kind of like seeing what comes out, and you get this cool sound. And then for the other effects on here, so we do have a bit of erosion. You can see that's just at actually the maximum amount and then the lowest frequency setting, so it's just kind of giving it more crunch and more sort of like just kind of weird stuff happening in the sound to give some texture. And then the reverb also is just being automated here. The dry wet is being automated, so that the sound just kind of like fades out and then it stops. And yeah, so those three things, the snare and then the two risers, are going to make up the build. And then the last effect here is just this little down noise. So all that this is it's just some white noise going into a bandpass filter and operator. And typically with one of these, what you would do to make it kind of like fade down is you would automate the bandpass filter. So it would kind of go down like that. However, what we do with this one is we keep the bandpass filter in the same place where it's just kind of filtering this to just be some nice bright high end. And then there's actually just a decay and sustain envelope that's making it kind of like disappear. And then it just cuts out like that. So yeah, this is a nice way to just create kind of like a blast of noise. And then it just stops really smooth like that. And yeah, and I have this just going through a bit of reverb to give it some space, and then just a compressor side chaining into the kick. And yeah, that's it for the noise. So you can see, it's a lot less stuff when it drops than in the build-up. But if you've done it all right, then it's going to all like build and drop well. And yeah, so that is it for the effects, and that is also going to be it for this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed. As always, make sure to like this video as well as subscribe, and let me know what you think of this video in the comments. Like I said in the beginning, you can get the full project files, samples, MIDI, presets, everything from this video. It's available right at the top of the description, and if you're a patron on my Patreon, check there, because it's already available. Thank you so much to everybody who's picked up these sample packs lately, guys. It's not that expensive, but it really supports me and helps keep me going, so I can keep making you guys new videos every day. And yeah, thank you so much, guys, and I will see you tomorrow with another video.